Greetings in Christ's name. I am Sister Daniela, a Catholic nun from a humble convent in the countryside. I never intended to share this personal testimony beyond my close circle, but something within me compels me to speak. A recent experience has profoundly changed me, and I feel a deep urgency to share it with the world. Through illness, I encountered something that extended beyond the limits of earthly existence. I found myself stepping into a realm I never expected to see until my final breath. What I discovered was both astonishing and deeply comforting, and now I feel it is my duty to share it with you. That morning, I awoke with an overwhelming sense of peace. It felt like any other day in the convent, an early start before sunrise, communal prayers in the chapel, followed by a warm cup of tea and readings from the scriptures. I remember sitting by the stained glass window, watching how the soft morning light transformed the world outside into a watercolor painting. Little did I know that the ordinary rhythm of my day would soon shift into something extraordinary. After prayers, I helped prepare breakfast for the other sisters and tidied up the chapel. As part of my duties, I arranged fresh bouquets for the altar, carefully placing each flower with reverence. All the while, I found myself softly humming hymns, feeling a quiet serenity wash over me. But as I opened my eyes, an inexplicable heaviness settled in my chest, subtle at first, then growing steadily throughout the day. By midday, I was in the convent's garden, tending to the rose bushes behind the chapel. The sun shone brightly, and the air was filled with the sweet fragrance of blossoms. As I carefully pruned the branches, an unexpected wave of dizziness overcame me. The world around me swayed as if the ground beneath me were shifting. I clutched the wooden railing, trying to steady myself and catch my breath. Concerned, I decided to return to my room and rest. Once inside, I sank onto my bed, attempting to compose myself. My hands trembled, damp with sweat, as I took deep, measured breaths to calm my racing heart. A quiet, unsettling realization crept over me. My body was giving up in a way I had never felt before. I can still recall the sensation, my vision blurring, the world fading at the edges, my final conscious thoughts turning into fragmented prayers. I pleaded for strength, for the Lord's mercy, hoping desperately that this was nothing more than a passing episode. And then darkness took me. The simple task of tending to roses that afternoon turned into a pivotal moment in my life. Looking back, those moments feel like a final chapter, though at the time I had no idea what was unfolding. Strangely, despite losing consciousness, I remember hearing voices, distant, muffled, as if calling to me from behind a veil of water. My sisters must have found me. Their voices blended together in urgent whispers, and their figures hovered above me like shifting silhouettes behind frosted glass. Sensations became jumbled. I felt pressure on my chest. My hands twitched weakly as though trying to respond. My heart pounded frantically, yet an unfamiliar chill coursed through my veins, leaving me shivering. And then everything changed. Uncontrollably, I found myself in a strange state of limbo, neither fully present in my body nor entirely absent. I felt as though I was perched on the brink of consciousness, ensnared in a realm of twilight where reality became hazy. I vaguely recall being lifted onto a stretcher, the white roof of an ambulance looming above me. The siren wailed, cutting through the air, while voices around me spoke in rapid medical jargon I couldn't comprehend. The noise pierced my eardrums, urgent, sharp, until suddenly everything faded into silence. My heartbeat felt erratic, at times racing uncontrollably, at others barely present, as if clinging to the edge of existence. No matter how much I tried to hold on, an overwhelming darkness pulled me downward, like a relentless undertow. Time itself appeared to be simultaneously distorted, stretched, and compressed. In the midst of swirling chaos, I was dimly aware of paramedics working on me, their movements urgent yet methodical. The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered above me as I was rushed down the corridor, the faint aroma of antiseptics mingling into an overwhelming, sterile haze. Between flashes of awareness, I heard a voice, calm but urgent, mention that my pulse was dropping. Another voice, sharp with tension, called for a crash cart. A high-pitched beep filled the air, drowning out everything else. My eyelids grew heavy, the world fading into an abyss. I was certain I would never open them again. Yet, amid the fear and confusion, an inexplicable peace settled over me. It was as if my soul had begun to surrender, preparing to slip away. My fear, paradoxically, was the last thread tying me to the world. Then, with one final shallow breath, something shifted. I felt a sudden lightness, as if someone were lifting me, making me weightless, and releasing me from the heaviness of my own body. At that moment, I had no idea that I was about to set out on a journey that defied human comprehension, one that went beyond the limits of life and death. My first conscious realization after that final breath was startling. I could see my own body. The abrupt shift in perspective stunned me. Below me, my physical form lay motionless on the hospital bed. I was hovering above it, weightless, gazing down as if observing a stranger. Doctors and nurses moved frantically around me, their faces tight with urgency. I saw tubes attached to my lifeless form, machines beeping, and the glow of emergency neon lights illuminating the room. Yet, to my surprise, I felt no fear, no panic. There was only a profound sense of detachment and awe. I remember thinking, how can I be up here while my body is down there? It was one of the most surreal moments of my existence. I was still me. My thoughts, my awareness, my very sense of self remained intact, but I was no longer bound by flesh and bone. An overwhelming sense of liberation overcame me, as if I had freed myself from all burdens and limitations. What struck me almost immediately was the complete absence of pain. My last conscious moments had been filled with confusion, labored breathing, and a frantic, racing heartbeat. Now there was only stillness. I felt as if I were floating inside a soft, weightless bubble. Time no longer moved in its usual way. Instead, everything unfolded with an unearthly calm and precision. From this vantage point, I could sense the emotions of those around me more vividly than I ever could in my physical form. I felt the doctor's focused determination, the nurse's growing urgency, and my sister's profound worry. Yet strangely, I felt no inclination to return to my body. Instead, a gentle pull from above beckoned me forward. It was as if a silent voice, powerful yet soothing, was calling me, drawing me away. I did not resist. I surrendered to it, enveloped in a serenity beyond words. The last thing I saw before drifting away was the heart monitor, a faint flicker, then a flat line. An ominous silence filled the room, but for me, it was not the end. It was only the beginning. But despite everything, I felt no fear. I remember thinking that the doctors and nurses were doing their best, but perhaps my time had truly come. As I drifted further, an overwhelming sense of peace enveloped me, a serene acceptance beyond anything I had ever known, the world I had known, the hospital room, the urgency, the beeping machines, faded into the background as if it no longer belonged to me. In that suspended moment, my only certainty was that something vast and loving was drawing me into a new realm. I was ready, perhaps even eager, to discover what lay beyond the horizon of my earthly existence. The transition from the hospital room to this new phase of existence was smoother than any journey I had ever undertaken. It was as effortless as stepping out of a dimly lit corridor into brilliant sunlight. There was no struggle, no abrupt shift, just a seamless movement from one state of being to another. One moment, I was watching my body from above. The next, I was traveling through what felt like a soft, luminous tunnel. The radiance surrounding me was unlike any light I had ever seen. It was not harsh or glaring, but warm and welcoming, as if it carried an unspoken invitation. As I moved through this tunnel, an indescribable sense of safety and belonging washed over me, like a beloved friend embracing me after a long journey. A gentle hum resonated all around, a vibration that reminded me of something distant yet familiar. It was almost like music, a celestial choir whose harmonies seemed to flow through me rather than just around me. The tunnel itself seemed infinite, stretching beyond sight, yet I never felt lost or uncertain. There was a purpose to my movement, a guidance that I could not see, but deeply understood. There was no aimlessness in my movement. Loving care was guiding me forward. Physical limitations no longer bound my senses, yet they somehow heightened in a way I couldn't fully comprehend. The colors surrounding me were unlike any I had seen on earth, vibrant hues of luminous blues, radiant golds, and shimmering whites that seemed alive with their own brilliance. It was as if light itself carried meaning and emotion. My sense of touch and hearing had transformed. The best way I could describe it was that I could feel sound while also hearing light. Everything blended into a perfect symphony of harmony, a unity beyond earthly comprehension. A part of me instinctively tried to analyze it, to make sense of this experience. My training as a nun had encouraged me to think with both faith and reason, but I quickly realized this was beyond human logic. There was no need for explanations. It was a sensation to experience. I was absolutely certain that pure, boundless love governed this realm. Tender compassion welcomed me without hesitation or condition. There was no judgment here, no lingering regrets or anxieties, only an overwhelming embrace that assured me I was safe, cherished, and known. Though the tunnel stretched on, I soon noticed a gentle opening ahead, glowing with an even purer radiance than the light around me. It beckoned me forward, and, though I saw no figures, I felt an undeniable presence, as if unseen arms were reaching out, wrapping me in warmth. I was not alone. I didn't need to see anyone to know I was in divine company. Every molecule of light carried an imprint of something greater, something infinite and holy. This transition didn't feel like leaving life behind. It felt like stepping into a love so profound that it erased every trace of fear. For the first time, I understood how deep human fear was, how small it seemed in the presence of such overwhelming love. Where love flourished, doubt could not exist. I moved forward, eager to see what lay ahead, to witness the revelations that this new reality held. But it was more than curiosity. It was a longing, a recognition that this place was more real than anything I had ever known. Love was not just an emotion here. It had a presence, almost tangible, like air, but infinitely more vibrant and warm. Every part of my being resonated with it. In that moment, all sorrow, all fear, and all earthly burdens melted away. The weight of the world, the struggles of life, and the uncertainties I had carried felt like distant memories, as fleeting as a dream upon waking. I stood there, though stood didn't seem the right word, as my form was more fluid than physical, in absolute awe, drinking in my surroundings. A gentle living glow illuminated the space around me. There were no walls, no ceilings, only an endless expanse of radiance stretching in all directions. This was not the stark white light of a hospital lamp, but something infinitely more profound. It was the light of home. The light around me was softer than anything I had ever known, its hues shifting and flowing like living brushstrokes on a celestial canvas. It was not static, but alive, moving with a gentle rhythm that seemed to pulse in harmony with the very essence of existence. In the midst of this radiant atmosphere, I sensed something or someone approaching. At first, I could not see a distinct face or form, but I knew this presence. I recognized it immediately, not with my eyes, but with the deepest part of my being. It was an energy unlike any other, unmistakable, undeniable. It was the presence of God in my heart, or whatever part of me still held the essence of my emotions. I felt an overwhelming reverence and gratitude. If I had still possessed a physical body, I would have wept. But instead of tears, a profound peace radiated through me, dissolving every lingering sorrow, every wound I had carried, even those I had long believed irreparable. This divine love poured into every corner of my soul, healing old scars and lifting burdens I hadn't realized I was still carrying. We did not erase, but transformed my childhood memories, moments of regret, whispers of doubt, and the loneliness I had once felt, even within the convent. They no longer carried pain. Instead, they became lessons infused with understanding and compassion. It was as if I was seeing my own life through God's eyes, and in doing so, I understood myself in a way I never had before. There was no sense of time in this holy moment. There was no sense of urgency or rushing, only the certainty that I was whole, that I was known in the deepest sense, more completely than I had ever known myself. And yet, they loved, adored me beyond words, despite every flaw, every failing, and every mistake I had ever feared would define me. Then, it became evident to me that all the worries and imperfections I had carried were mere specks in an endless ocean of grace. That grace surrounded me now, unbreakable, eternal. I did not hear a voice in the way we understand sound, yet a message was imprinted upon me with absolute clarity. We love you. You are precious. You are mine, always. This love had never left me, not once, not even in the moments when I had felt most distant from it. Even when life's struggles had made me feel isolated or unworthy, this divine love had been there, constant and unwavering. It was a presence beyond comprehension, boundless, limitless, eternal. This extraordinary realm built everything else upon its foundation. As I became fully immersed in this all-encompassing love, my consciousness expanded. I became aware in a way that defied earthly understanding. I stood in a realm so indescribable that words could barely contain its meaning, and yet stood was not quite the right word, for I was not confined to a body in the way I had once been. This was no dream, no mere mental projection. It was real, more real than anything I'd ever known on earth. In the distance, I noticed rolling hills bathed in an ethereal light. They shimmered, their colors radiant and alive, as if woven from pure energy. A soft mist, glowing with an inner luminescence, blanketed the slopes like morning dew, except this dew did not merely reflect the light. It was the light. A gentle breeze moved through the air, though it carried no temperature. Instead, it carried something far more profound, waves of peace so deep, so absolute, that they seemed to settle into every fiber of my being. The very air sang in quiet, harmonious praise, resonating with a melody not heard by ears, but felt within the soul. As I took in the breathtaking panorama, I noticed structures in the distance, vast, luminous, as if crafted from pure radiance. They were not solid in the way earthly buildings were, yet they had form and presence. Their shapes were elegant, reminiscent of grand cathedrals, yet more fluid, more organic. These were not buildings made of stone or wood. They were woven from light itself, each beam placed with divine intentionality. Reverence filled me as I gazed upon them. I could feel the holiness within their walls, as if they resonated with a collective prayer, a prayer that had no beginning and no end. Despite my eagerness to explore, I found myself drawn to them. I was not alone. Throughout this divine realm, I sensed the presence of others, souls, beings of light, moving with a grace and peace beyond description. They did not resemble people in the physical sense, yet I knew them to be individuals, each radiating a unique essence. Some glowed with a soft, serene light, exuding a deep, quiet peace, while others shone more vibrantly, their energy filled with an almost joyous warmth. There was an unspoken recognition between us, a silent understanding that we were all part of something vast, something holy, something unified. Time was irrelevant here. I could not tell you how long I remained in that place, for each moment felt infinite in its fullness. Without words, without explanation, I understood. This was the realm we so often speak of as heaven, and I was standing at its threshold. At the very least, this place served as a gateway to something far greater, a threshold between what I had known and what lay beyond. The colors, the music, the architecture, everything radiated an essence beyond earthly comprehension. Grace permeated the atmosphere, a presence so pure and overwhelming that it felt like the most direct manifestation of God's love. Standing within this realm of unbounded creativity and power, untouched by the limitations of the physical world, I understood. For the first time, I truly grasped that earthly life, though precious and meaningful, is merely a fragment of a much greater reality. The fullness of existence, a realm brimming with promise, was what I was experiencing now, reminding me that love and grace take on forms far beyond our mortal comprehension. Yet my journey was far from over. This was merely the beginning of my realization, the first glimpse of the vast, intricate divine tapestry woven beyond the borders of human perception. As I moved deeper into this radiant expanse, I became aware of others. Their forms were not solid in the way we understand bodies, but their presence was unmistakable. Some were familiar to me from my earthly life, while others were strangers. Yet, I felt an immediate and profound connection with them. A thread of love and understanding bound us, an unspoken acknowledgement of each other's entire story and essence. There was no need for introductions in this place. In this grand assembly, relationships flowed effortlessly, untouched by the barriers of time, language, or culture. Every soul knew and recognized the other, not by name or appearance, but by the depth of their spirit. One of the first souls I recognized was an elderly nun, a woman who had passed away many years before in my convent. In earthly life, she had been frail, her body weighed down by age, but here she radiated warmth, wisdom, and a youthful vibrance unburdened by time. She did not have a distinct physical face, yet I recognized her essence instantly. Without words, we shared a transmission of joy and gratitude so profound that it felt as though I was embracing her with my very soul. Beyond her, I sensed the presence of others, souls who, in life, had been saints. They shone with an otherworldly grace, not as mere reflections of the images venerated in churches, but as radiant beings infused with divine light. Their presence filled me with awe and reverence, as if I stood among living icons, each carrying a fragment of God's purest love. But what truly humbled me was the presence of souls I had never known in life, yet they knew me. They approached with gentle acceptance, their understanding of who I was surpassing anything words could ever convey. There were no time or space boundaries, only the certainty that we were all one eternal family. Some of these souls had walked the earth centuries before me. Others had only recently crossed into this realm. Yet, distinctions such as time and history were meaningless here. The unity we shared transcended all such differences. It was not a meeting of minds, but of hearts. During these encounters, I learned more about love and empathy than I had in an entire lifetime. Every exchange was a revelation, a mutual unveiling of the pure intentions and experiences of another soul. In this place, compassion, forgiveness, and understanding were not mere lessons to learn, but rather the inherent state of being. There was no judgment, no envy, no malice, only the deep abiding knowledge that we all came from the same divine source. If I were to compare this to anything on earth, the closest analogy would be a family reunion in which every member shares an unshakable, unconditional love. And yet, even that comparison falls short, for the love here was infinite, untouched by human frailty, beyond the reach of time. Meeting these souls reminded me of a truth I had always believed, but never fully understood. We are never truly alone. The deepest connections of our souls remain, even when vast distances separate us. Love, in its truest form, is eternal, more enduring than anything the physical world allows. And then, in the midst of this transcendent experience, came the moment that would forever be etched into the very fabric of my being. I felt it before I saw him, a presence so gentle, yet so powerful, that it seemed to envelop everything around me in warmth and light. The very atmosphere changed, charged with immeasurable kindness and understanding. Every fiber of my soul seemed to bow in reverence, not by force, but by the sheer recognition of divine majesty. Then I saw him, Jesus Christ. He did not need to speak, nor did I need to ask if it was truly him. Every part of me knew. His presence was unlike anything I had ever encountered, overwhelming in its love, radiant in its peace. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Every fear, every sorrow, every question I had ever carried faded into insignificance. I had come home. The Redeemer appeared, not in the way we perceive physical bodies, but as pure, living light. This light was both warm and majestic, radiating an indescribable brilliance. Yet my heart knew without hesitation that this was the Lord, the very one to whom I had devoted my life. His love was not distant or abstract. It was deeply personal, all-encompassing and infinite, like an ocean of mercy without end. If I still had a physical body, I would have collapsed to the ground. But in this realm, I was beyond the constraints of flesh. Instead, my very soul bowed in profound awe and gratitude, prostrating itself before him in a way that went beyond posture. It was a complete surrender of my being. Then he spoke. Though his lips moved in a way that was unmistakably human, his words resonated directly within my soul. It was not merely sound that I heard. It was truth pouring into the deepest parts of my existence. The most astonishing part was the message he delivered. Tell them I am here. I am always with them, in their joy, in their suffering, in their triumphs, and in their trials. Many feel abandoned in their darkest moments, unaware that my presence surrounds them. Even when they cannot feel it, let them know that my love remains constant, unwavering, and eternal. His words carried a depth beyond human comprehension. They were not just a reassurance, but a revelation, a powerful reminder that the gates of heaven remain open to all souls who seek them. The clarity of this truth overwhelmed me. It resonated through me like ripples on a still pond, spreading outward with undeniable certainty. Jesus did not simply offer comfort. He illuminated the tragedy of human suffering, the way pain and confusion can make people believe they're alone when, in reality, they are never abandoned. But there was more. The revelation was beyond my wildest expectations. He spoke of unity, of a love that knew no boundaries, no prejudices. He spoke of a love that transcended religious divisions, personal history, and any mistake a person could ever make. There was no exclusion, no separation. His mercy was for all. He poured out this love like a healing balm, meant for every soul, regardless of where they had come from or what they had done. Then came his instruction, simple yet profound. Share this truth whenever possible. His words possessed the weight of a divine mandate. He was not sending me back to judge, but to guide, to remind every soul of the Father's unending embrace. His message was not complicated. It was as pure and heartfelt as his very essence. Forgive endlessly, love without condition, and remember, I am with you always. In that moment, I understood these truths in a way that transcended theology. This was not merely knowledge, it was a direct experience of divine reality. Every question I had ever held about faith, about destiny, about the will of God, every uncertainty melted away in the presence of his unwavering love. But then, something shifted. A gentle urgency rippled through the realm, like a silent signal that my time there was drawing to a close. Despite the absence of words, my intuition told me that I couldn't stay. A deep longing arose within me, an ache to remain in this place of perfect love, where harmony was unbroken, where every soul was known and cherished beyond measure. Yet, the Lord's words had made it clear, I still had a purpose to fulfill on earth. He intended for me to share the message he had given me, not just for my personal comfort. And so I felt it, a soft yet insistent pull, drawing my attention away from the radiant landscape. My essence, which had been so free and at ease in this celestial domain, began to shift. It was as if I was being gently led back through the tunnel of light, the familiar hum of divine energy slowly fading into the background. I turned, taking in every detail one last time, the luminous hills, the glowing structures, the souls bathed in endless love. I longed to imprint them onto my very being, to never forget a single moment of what I had witnessed. But as I neared the threshold between that realm and my earthly life, I felt something strange. Weight. I felt a weight that I had previously forgotten. My awareness of time began to return, and with it, an echo of physical limitation. A nostalgic sorrow filled me as I realized I was leaving behind a place where true unity and love flowed uninterrupted. Yet alongside that sorrow, there was also a quiet resolve. Someone had entrusted me with something sacred, a mission. The message was clear: Jesus is always with us. Slowly, the brilliance of the heavenly realm began to dim. The ethereal radiance of divine light gave way to a different kind of brightness, the stark, sterile glow of fluorescent lights. The heavenly expanse shifted, and in its place, I saw a hospital room. A cluster of anxious faces filled the room. Doctors and nurses are moving quickly. It took a moment to realize what I was looking at. A still figure lies in the hospital bed. It was me. The sight before me was startling. My body lay pale, fragile, and utterly lifeless. Yet, despite the emotional weight of the moment, I understood that returning to it was inevitable. My journey was not yet complete. Squeezing into a space far too small for my essence felt like the final moment of re-entry. My spirit, which had expanded so freely in the heavenly realm, now had to fit back into the confines of flesh and bone. Though there was no physical pain, I felt a distinct constriction, as if I were being forced into a garment many sizes too small after experiencing limitless freedom. Then, in one swift, decisive instant, like the beat of a heart, I was abruptly reminded of my human limitations, and so my blissful sojourn came to an end. But deep within me, I carried echoes of divine grace, the unshakable certainty that the place I had visited was the ultimate reality. Jesus had given me the opportunity to share his message, and that knowledge filled me with purpose. My eyes fluttered open, met instantly by the blinding harshness of fluorescent hospital lights. A rush of sensations overwhelmed me. My chest felt unbearably heavy, as though weighed down by a sandbag, and my lungs burned with the effort of taking in air. The rhythmic beeping of machines, the urgent murmur of voices, the sterile scent of antiseptics, all of it clashed with the memory of the divine realm I had just left behind. For a moment, I felt disoriented, torn between two realities: the radiant, boundless love of the heavenly domain and the stark physical world of tubes, wires, and medical monitors. I became aware of figures hovering over me, nurses, doctors, their faces etched with astonishment. One of the sisters leaned in closer, her expression shifting from deep concern to utter disbelief. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched her rosary, her hands trembling. The atmosphere in the room was thick with emotion. There was pure relief, but also lingering shock. The collective belief that I had slipped away for good had been so absolute, and yet here I was. As I inhaled the sterile hospital air, reality set in. I had returned. The reawakening was strange. My body, though familiar, felt foreign to me, like an ill-fitting suit of armor. I had forgotten the weight of human form, the sluggish resistance of muscles, the constraints of physical existence. My mind, still saturated with the echoes of divine love, struggled to reconcile the boundless warmth I had known with the cold sterility of the hospital room. Even so, through the exhaustion, the discomfort, and the dryness in my throat, an overwhelming sense of gratitude coursed through me. I was alive. Not only was I alive, but someone had entrusted me with something sacred. Medical assessments and hurried examinations dominated the next few hours. Nurses and doctors conducted tests, their eyes betraying a mix of confusion and amazement. The results defied logic. According to their records, my heart had flatlined for an extended period, long enough that, by all medical reasoning, I should not have returned so easily. Certainly, I should not have returned with such clarity, coherence, and stability. The questions came in waves. What did you experience? Are you in pain? How is it possible that you are awake, aware, and speaking so clearly? At first, I had few words to offer. I was still processing the transition, adjusting from the ethereal peace of divine presence back to the frailty of the human condition. The contrast was stark, almost jarring, and yet within me there remained an unshakable joy. This joy was a silent, glowing certainty. The presence of Jesus, the message he had given me, and the all-encompassing love of that other dimension still resonated in my being. My heartbeat, which had once ceased entirely, now pulsed with quiet determination. It was as if each beat was keeping time for a new purpose. Every breath felt like a gift, an opportunity. Lying there in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and concerned caregivers, I knew this was only the beginning. The slow process of reacquainting myself with my mortal body had begun. It felt like nothing more than a temporary vessel now, a necessary tool to complete the divine mission entrusted to me. And then came the most astonishing part of all. Against every medical expectation, my body began to heal rapidly. Doctors, who initially assumed I would require extensive care, were baffled by the swift turnaround. Given that I had been clinically dead for so long, they had prepared for the likelihood of severe organ damage. Some even believed I might need mechanical assistance to support my lungs and heart. But with each passing hour, new surprises unfolded. Within 24 hours, my vital signs had stabilized. Within 48 hours, improvements were undeniable. Instead of being a lengthy and uncertain journey to recovery, it transformed into a remarkable experience, serving as a testament to the miraculous. By the end of the week, I was unexpectedly alert and eager to share my experience. The medical staff, though relieved by my recovery, were perplexed by the rapid healing. They ran countless tests to understand why my body was recovering so quickly, but every scan and blood test returned with unexpectedly normal results. My convent sisters referred to it as a doctor's miracle, but I considered it something even more extraordinary, an act of divine grace. I vividly remembered how the presence of Jesus had enveloped me during my time in the other realm, and I felt a sense of hope that the healing power of divine love was still at work. During my recovery, I had moments of confusion, a side effect of trying to reconcile the reality of earthly logic with the spiritual truth I had encountered. My muscles, weakened by my time away from my body, felt as if they had melted into jelly. After standing for more than an hour, I experienced dizziness, and it took several minutes to regain my balance. Yet, in those moments of physical discomfort, I discovered a newfound resilience within myself. My spirit felt lighter, free from the burdens of fear and worry that had once weighed me down. Even the simplest tasks, like drinking water or gazing up at the sky through the hospital window, were filled with gratitude and wonder. Each action, once taken for granted, now felt like a precious gift. Visitors began arriving, other nuns, relatives, and friends, eager to witness what they believed to be a miracle. Some patients, too, approached me, asking about my experience. What had I seen? How did I feel? I responded briefly, honestly, and with as much humility as I could muster. However, I sensed that not everyone was ready to hear the full magnitude of what I had witnessed. Many needed reassurance, and so I shared stories about how faith can overcome even the deepest despair. To be honest, I knew that my experience was far more profound and life-changing than what I was able to express in those moments. Despite the flurry of attention, I remained calm and centered, confident that my purpose was unfolding exactly as God intended. The adversity that had nearly claimed my life would now serve as an opportunity for a testimony, one that would touch souls and inspire others. As I prepared to share my miraculous journey, I took the time to ready myself physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I knew that soon I would step outside the hospital walls and reveal the shocking message I had received directly from Jesus himself.